This video is going to be about the best of the folding bikes. This channel is not just about folding bikes, it's about small wheel bikes in general. But I wanted to do a video on the very best of the folding versions and also to explain to you why I think it is the king. First of all, I only recommend 3 folding bikes on this channel, and these are the Brompton, the ProDrive, and the Birdie. The Molten and some of the Bike Friday models that I also recommend are not folding bikes, so they are not going to be considered in this ranking. They are great bikes, but there is a difference between folding and compactable or packable kind of a frame. So the first one I'm going to look at is the ProDrive. If you have watched my other videos, you are probably familiar with this. I'm looking at the most competent, the top of the line model that they have. These bikes are not cheap. They come in at close to $5,000, but they give you a lot. I think it's overall a gorgeous frame. You have quite a number of options as to what you want to get. I really like this carbon fiber styled clear coat kind of look, but you have at least a half a dozen options, and they even offer a custom color. So if you don't like anything they offer, you can make up your own color. So the aesthetics are top notch. I also like the option of a belt drive, and you can have a Shimano drive train. That's all great. It's a fairly speedy ride. It's fairly rigid, as much as a folding bike can be. Unfortunately, these long posts that are sticking out of every folding bike are going to flex. There's not much you can do about it. If you don't like the flex, you will have to step up to the Molten's separable frame approach, which is going to be a bit more difficult to assemble and disassemble, but it will give you more rigidness. Now, the downsides of the bike are, number one, this weird wheel size. And this is the only one you can use, 349 millimeters. The same thing used only by this company, the Brompton and the Green Speed Racing Trike. Those are the only cycles I've ever seen using this weird size. And because very few companies use this, the tire selection is very limited. You cannot install a smaller, proper 305 millimeter set of wheels unless you do something with the grip brakes, which would need an adapter to lower them, both in the front as well as in the rear. And even then, if you wanted to put in fatter, more comfortable, more grippy tires, and the 2-inch wide tires would really be the one I would want for an all-around commuter, fun, errand, and light touring bike. You cannot do that because there's not going to be enough space in the fork and possibly even in the rear to accept that much of a tire width. Also, the frame has absolutely no suspension in it. Even the Brompton is going to give you some suspension, not this frame. This frame is really best used as a single speed training or racing, track racing kind of ultralight, either racing or commuter bike. It simply does not work out as a top of the line all around generalist folding bike, as attractive as it is. So this is not going to be my choice. Let us look at the Brompton. The top of the line Brompton is even more expensive. You're looking at a $6,000 bike. It is titanium, it is lighter. You can get slightly below 20 pounds, which is nice. And it has that magical Brompton fold. The fold is very neat. It is quick and easy. It is the most sophisticated fold of any bike. Beyond that, the gear range is adequate. It does not take a Shimano like the previous ProDrive bike I was looking at, but it has a dual system with a Sturby Archer hub and a 4-disc cassette. Unfortunately, if you look closely, and you cannot look really closely here, well, maybe here, you see that the cogs are not that different from each other. So you're not getting a very wide gear range. you're getting okay gear range, but it is not Shimano, let alone roll-off. And then there is the aesthetics. The classic understeady design of the Brompton was always nice, but now they have a fatter tubing and this weird modern carbon fork that they stuck onto it. They clearly did not consider what they were doing to the aesthetics of the bike. So the aesthetics really fail. There is a little bit of a suspension via an elastomer in the rear, but nothing in the front. You have grip brakes just like on the ProDrive. There's not much you can do with that. You could upgrade the front to a Magura grip brake that attaches at one point only, but it costs nearly $300, and you would probably have to remove this carrier block from the front to fit it in. And the carrier block is hugely important for a Brompton because most people do want to use the front bag. And it's nice that it has a front bag, but I'm just saying you cannot upgrade the brake very much in general. So this one is also not the top bike. My top choice among the birdies is the Birdie roll-off. It is the crown jewel in the Birdie stable. And you are looking at Singaporean dollars here, but I looked at an American option and it's basically the same price. It's actually cheaper than getting a titanium bike from Brompton with a primitive suspension, primitive gear set, and old-fashioned brakes. What is this bike going to give you? It's going to give you quite a lot. The roll-off hub is obviously the main selling point because it offers enough of a range of gears inside that even on small wheels you should have no problem climbing anything and then coming down on a steep downhill doing 45 an hour and still pedaling because you still have enough gears to support your speed. And that's, I think, is the most important point. But in addition, you have hydraulic disc brakes straight out of the box, front and rear. None of the other bikes give you that. You have front and rear suspension. The rear is actually not much better than the Brompton, but the front one is huge. This is not only an average front suspension, but hands down the best in the business. There is not much of any dipping, and I'm saying this as a former owner of a Birdie. I rode mine for over a decade, and there is not much of any dipping as you hit the bumps because the up and down movements are converted into back and forth movement, more or less, not 100%, but more or less. You'll feel a little bit of a dip, but overall, there is absolutely no forearm fatigue. Before I got my Brompton, I didn't know what a forearm fatigue was. That, and this one also has a very nice monocoque frame. It's kind of similar to the ProDrive, but the ProDrive is made either of carbon fiber or a natural fabric. This is actually an aluminum monocoque, often shaped using hydraulic forces. In any case, it's very rigid. You have the usual flexing that you get with all of the folding bikes up here, but you have a little bit of support. There is a little bit more support than average. And this triangle is also a fairly good size. I would say at least as big as what the ProDrive gives you. So there is a bit more rigidness that you are getting. I think the aesthetics are great. They are unique. This bicycle is recognizable from far away. This front looks like nobody else's, that's for sure. And I'd like to go into some of the details. The fold is not as neat and as compact as with the titanium Brompton, but it is certainly better than the Brompton G-Line. It's actually smaller. And if you watched my previous video, you would have seen that it is quite possible to wheel this bike around without much effort just on one of the wheels instead of on a training wheel. So that's a plus with the Birdie. This is a picture of the roll-off. This is a hub that you buy once in a lifetime, and I don't think you would need another bike unless you got into an accident and ended up under a pickup truck, in which case if the whole bike is destroyed you can still take your roll-off hub and install it on your next bike. If you are new to this kind of hub technology, you see that there are two wires, because unlike with all of the other hubs, you are not pulling a wire to change the gears. You are pulling two wires to change this switch. It is the switch that is changing the gears. So there is an enormous advantage here with the torque. As a result, these wires are probably never going to need even an adjustment, let alone replacement. So this is an incredibly sturdy, incredibly wide-ranged hub gear set that is the dream of most of us if we could afford it. If you just buy the hub, it would be around $1,600, $1,800 for the most base model. There are now several models available with differing number of gears inside of them. This is how the roll-off looks as you shift around. It is really quite simple. The basic roll-off is only 10 speed, so this is not even a basic entry-level hub. This is pretty advanced, and you get a decent brake set as well. It is hydraulic. As far as your chain wheel is concerned, one downside of German engineering is that it is so tight, so precise. There's very little tuning you can do. A dual chainring you probably could not do, and I imagine you would probably not need to do, because there is so much of a range in the hub in the rear. You could increase this 52 tooth chainring a little bit. Maybe you could install a 54, even a 56. But once you push the chain up here, you see that there is a bump, and that's not going to allow you to oversize this chain wheel too much. There is also a chain stay, which is a nice touch, because sometimes my chain would jump off if I hit a big bump or if I jumped off of a curb. So this is a nice way of ensuring that the chain is not going to come off. And here is your Tektro / whatever hydraulic disc set. It is a little heavy, but if you want an all-around generalist king of a small wheel bike that's foldable, that can be used in so many ways, not a racer, but you can use it for commuting, errands, touring, short-term, even long-range touring, even a whole vacation spent in a saddle. You could do all of that on this bike. Here is the tire. It's not my choice. If I ordered this one, I would probably not want just a 1.5. This front suspension can accommodate 2-inch wide tires, and I would go with the 2 inches. 1.5 is not bad. It's better than the 1.35 that the Brompton and the ProDrive allow you as the maximum, but 2 inches would be optimal. Here is the seat. It's not my favorite. I have done several videos on seats. You should look them up if you are interested in the topic. Yes, there is a prostate cutout, and it's gonna prevent a direct jackhammering of your urethra if you're a male. But the problem is, you're still gonna pinch your urethra from the two sides. You're still gonna jackhammer your prostate as well, except at 2 points, not in the center on 1 point. So this is still not good enough of a seat. And this is the elastomer, same thing as with the Brompton. This is the first thing to upgrade. If you spend $5,500 on a bicycle like this one, you might as well spend another $100 or $150 on a decent upgrade, which many dealers actually sell. And Riese und Müller endorses some of those packages. There's also an upgrade in the package for the front. In my experience, you don't need it. The front suspension is a dreamboat as it is. The downside is you cannot electrify this bike from the front if you want to, because any power application from the front pulling the wheel forward would rip out this latch. This system was designed to take pressure backward from the tire, not a pulling power. There's no way to modify this. So you can electrify this bicycle, but not in the front and not in the rear either, because you now have your priceless roll-off hub there. The only thing you can do is a mid-drive solution, and there are various options for that. Perhaps I will do a video on them at some point. It's not the easiest thing to do with a folding bike, but some people have done it, And there are some kits that only support you up to 15 miles an hour, but they are very attractive and they would not disturb the aesthetic of the bike too much. As far as the fit and finish are concerned, I would say it's on the level of the most premium Bromptons. Definitely not better than the Molten, which is a separable frame bike. Probably isn't quite as good as the ProDrive, but pretty decent. This would be my choice if I wanted to have something very elegant, but not too loud. If I wanted something sporty and loud, then obviously I would go for this. This is a very sexy set. You have Ferrari red shining on the main tube, and the extremities are done in flat black. What could be sportier than that? Or if you want to just like have a tacky, sort of high-tech but luxurious and elegant look, but not too loud, then you could choose one of the metallic finishes. They actually have quite a number of finishes available. Check out all these colors. You can get plenty of different colors from this company, but custom colors that you personally ask for that you cannot get, that is only for the ProDrive. All of these are handmade, by the way. I don't recommend anything on this channel that's not handmade. I do believe that handmade still gives you the best results. So this is my opinion. This is the king of the folding bikes. I would still do some upgrades even on a bike as fancy as this one. I mentioned the elastomer. I would definitely upgrade that. I would upgrade the tires. In general, I would want more suspension, especially for touring. I would want a big, comfortable saddle. And you should check my shop below for links. I have a bunch of links for the technologies I have used. You can look in my books to see how I configured my own bike. I would do a much more plush seat for this one, unless this is a short-term commuting bike, in which case you might not even need this much power. You may not need the roll-off or the hydraulic disc brakes, but for an average commute, 10 miles or more, I would want that. And I would want the suspension as well, a suspension seat post at least. They do offer as standard these anatomic grips. They are adequate, but they are not as fancy as the one I have. So I would go all the way and I would upgrade this one as well, especially because this kind of a simple flat bar would only allow you one grip position instead of a number of them, which you would get if you had a high-end ergon bar end, such as the one I have. This is all I have to say about the king of the folding bikes. Feel free to add comments, what you think, and like, and definitely check out all the links. As with all videos, I'm giving you a link to all of the products and websites included in the video.
I'll be back.